Hi guys, Jared Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And today I get to speak to John Gillham from authority website Income and Motion Invest. Now, John previously was an engineer and he started to move himself away from being an engineer by starting his own website businesses and making a bit of money, and then moved into buying his own online business himself. And then eventually he started pooling some money together with other people he knew as capital to buy bigger businesses. And what started happening was people started asking him where to buy websites from and how much they should be buying sites for as their first website business. So in this episode, John and I break down and talk about the best websites to buy for beginners, how to learn more about due diligence before going away and buying websites, and how to grow those websites with really good content. So if you're a first-time website investor and you're looking to buy something sub 75K range and just start getting into this space of buying sites and making an income online, be sure to not miss out on this episode. Please also, if you guys are watching this as a video, I want to apologize as my video had some technical errors. So my video won't be live, but John's will. But the audio is great quality, and I look forward to you enjoying this episode as well. So hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And today, very grateful to have John on, John Gillham. Thank you so much for joining us, John.
Jared, thanks for having me. Excited to be here and loving the kind of community and the podcast that you're building in the space.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. So when you first reached out to me, you were doing quite a cool venture with Spencer and Kelly, and that's how we sort of connected. And you wanted to have a couple of answers on one of your posts there, and we thought it'd be a good idea to jump on the podcast. First off, though, you started out building authority sites. Is that right?
Yeah. So my background, I mean, in the online world at least, has been heavy on kind of building systems, building content sites. And that's been, certainly where the majority of my time has been spent. And then talking a little bit about what I do at a site that I have online. And then from there, it's just been sort of continuing to identify problems and systems to have fun solving them. That's been kind of the majority of the journey.
Yeah. So what do you mean by that? You mean identifying problems and solving them. What sort of problems have arose that you've been working on?
Sure. So, I mean, the journey's been like, I've gone from kind of content sites, talking about what I do, and then building some productized services off the back of that. So I had a need in my sites for content and putting out, how do you put out high quality content at scale that has a predictable chance of ranking? Built a productized service, Content Refined, off of that need. And then just sort of continuing down that thread, we put some effort into a private equity play where we were acquiring with my own capital and a partner's capital, trying to identify a path to putting capital to work at scale into this asset class of that we all are fascinated by, which is digital assets. And so how do we put a sort of massive amount of potential capital into that? That didn't quite go the direction that we had planned on going, but any time the kind of engineer brain, I guess, whenever I can see an opportunity that there's a problem that there could be an efficient solution for, I'm always eager to try and kind of come up with that solution.
Yeah, cool. So how long into your engineering career till you started turning to the online space? And so you started your first site yourself, is that right? Or
yeah, so I mean, kind of the classic journey, I'd say, in terms of like side hustle into full time. I'm a pretty risk averse guy. In terms of my sort of relative risk profile. So I started just before I left university. I started sort of playing in the space, not really too serious in terms of building sites, ranking what's Google, how do you rank in it, and kind of off and on for a number of years. And then as my son was coming along and the career trajectory at the engineering job showed that, I was certainly going to be spending more and more hours at work and not less hours. And that wasn't the sort of life that we wanted. We wanted to get back to our hometown. So that's when I kind of got a little bit more serious. So it was ultimately 7 years of kind of building the side hustle into something significant and significant enough to move my family back to our hometown and leave the engineering job.
Congrats. It's one of my favorite milestones personally is getting out of that whole 9 to 5 type thing. A lot of people may see some other glory results that people can achieve and maybe that I've even gotten to, but I still feel that milestone was definitely one of my most fulfilling. It's quite a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely surreal. Definitely kind of a day that I definitely tried to kind of like document at least that journey was, because, like I said, I'd been very risk adverse to getting to that point. I know hindsight should have pulled that trigger years earlier, but yeah, it was getting there and, seeing the numbers climb on the spreadsheet as we were tracking to hit the metrics that I said we'd hit before we did it. It was fun.
Yeah, well done. That's so cool. And so you started sort of building sites and doing stuff online. What sort of sites were you looking at building and helping people with? And then let's sort of move into what sort of sites were you like putting some capital in to buy? Like what like monetization methods were they?
Yeah, so mostly Amazon Associate, AdSense or other display ads, some other affiliate programs. I've had, within my portfolio of either my personal portfolio, I've had, some smaller SaaS, some e-com, Shopify drop shipping, and Amazon FBA. So kind of, run the gamut of everything, but most of those businesses all come back to the core skill set of content, ranking in Google, getting traffic, driving to a monetization method. And some, I've been a little bit more monetization method agnostic, but typically focused on content, links, traffic from Google to the website that is making the money. That's been the kind of the core strategy. And whether that's a SaaS business or Amazon affiliate links, hasn't been that hasn't mattered as much to me. And then in terms of the type of sites that we've been buying and selling both in the portfolio, my personal portfolio, and then kind of with any new ventures, it's the content sites, because of their ease of execution, have always been the go-to.
Yeah, definitely less work when in the content sites as opposed to e-com, and having not just stock, whether it's FBA, but also if it's drop ship, dealing with customers, customer support as well.
I was saying, a lot of moving parts, and there's very few businesses in the world that can have the kind of returns that content sites can have with the few moving parts that they have.
Isn't it funny though that I first came to this space and thought, all right, to make money online, I need to sell some products, and a lot of people do come to the space and are like, yeah, like if you need to sell something to make money, right? Of your own, or drop shipping or whatnot. It's kind of funny that a lot of people do feel that that's the what's drawing them, and that's what they got to do. So yeah, I like the content. Like I'm really getting into content myself, as you see, like the podcast, and I do a bit of content marketing and stuff, and it's definitely the best way to go. Talk to me a little bit more about some of your content strategy, because I know it's definitely changed over the years, right? Like, what do you focus on, getting keywords and wrapping content around that, and then how do you look at getting your traffic and links and all that sort of stuff? How does that work for you?
Certainly the evolution of keyword research has been sort of fascinating over the number of years. But I mean, I'll say kind of what we do right now is take a very systematic approach to how do we create content that will predictably rank in Google. And so what does that mean? And that's, doing both keyword research. Typically it's looking at, especially with a portfolio where I'm not like most of the sites I'm not like, really knowledgeable about and passionate about. It's typically like looking at the portfolio, understanding what the competitors to that site are, and then building out content that is a gap between what the competitor has and is ranking for and what we haven't yet covered. And then using correlation SEO tools. A tool that we use heavily is MarketMuse, which is kind of semi-correlation SEO, but also uses some artificial intelligence to help identify what keywords and topics that the best topic in the world for that search term would be, and then building out the content. So trying to stay as close to what the site is already ranking for, identify the gaps that we're missing compared to competitors, and then using a lot of tools to go about creating with quality, native English writers always, what content we can create that will be the best in the world for that search term.
Yeah, awesome. So it's definitely around finding what people are searching for mostly, and then sort of wrapping content around that. It's certainly important because that's a big part, but what I find is also a very important part, which I think a lot of people lack, in my opinion, is creating not just content for what those keywords are and just help solve a problem, but add massive value with that content to solve the problem, more than what that person was actually just searching for, which could just be like groundbreaking for them. Because I know I see a lot of people looking at buying content sites, right? I look at content sites all of the time. Actually, I looked at 3 this morning, helping do due diligence reviews on them. That's a part of what we do in the community. And it's like, okay, yeah, I could just grow this and just add some more content to it. Well, of course, but it's not just, hey, let's just slap a post together each week and throw it up. And it'll be, solving a problem in a small way. Like the quality, I just feel like people just don't get it. Like it feel like it's still a myth that you need to just create more content and just keep updating your site with more content versus, revising, pruning, refining, and just making it better. Like, what's your take on all that?
So we've seen a huge lift in the ability to look at the existing sites, identify articles that are ranking kind of bottom of page 1, top of page 2, and taking them from where they are to top of page 1 with, again, leveraging both tools to help identify what gaps that article hasn't covered that Google is looking for it to cover, and then also taking the approach of, again, how do we make this the best for the given topic. And I think we were talking about like the content piece that we connected over in terms of the buying websites online and the massive guide, 15,000 words. Anytime that you can take a piece of content like that and call it, like, I'll say disrupt an industry is an exaggeration, but that's sort of the concept. When you can take a piece of content that truly changes the game in terms of the value that it provides, it becomes a pretty interesting play to do in the space, and the results can be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I love that you say that, like an industry changing report, and like I don't know if it needs to be an exaggeration. Like I look at it, if people create a purple cow piece of content, then they're doing good things, right? And if people don't know what a purple cow is, Seth Godin, he wrote this book called Purple Cow. Have you read that before?
Yeah. I think that came out is that over 10 years?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's an older book, and it's just stood the test of time. And if people create a purple cow piece of content, and they just did that once a year, and maybe even they spent their whole year working on that purple cow, they could generate more traffic and more links than putting out something every single week. And I feel that's just really important for everybody that's listening to understand, is that less is more when it's done really, really well.
Yeah, and I mean having like I agree and disagree, but like having that combo of the two is when I think the real power can start, because you get those massive pieces that the industry disrupting, that carry the weight, and then you get the pieces that come around it that support it, and it's you get the rising tide lifts all ships, and that's when we've seen the most success, is when you can get those monster posts out that the links naturally come to, and then that flows through to the sort of the ongoing content schedule, and that's kind of that's the holy grail when you can kind of pull that off.
Yeah, for sure. Imagine if you had 2 purple cows per year, or 1 purple cow per month. Like, the main thing is to not like compromise on the quality there. So yeah, let's talk about that report. So just for everybody listening, John reached out to me and wanted me to contribute to the report, which is I greatly appreciate, and thank you, John. And the report's on behalf of Motion Invest with yourself and Spencer Hawes, and also Kelly as well. I think I'm going to get Spencer on shortly, and I'm jumping on his podcast shortly as well. So we booked that in, which is really cool. But talk to us more about this Motion Invest in the industry, the report that you're putting out. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. So Motion Invest. So Spencer Hawes from These Pursuits. One of the most recognized names in the space, I'd say. We've been contact friends for years. Always had sort of some bouncing ideas off each other in terms of some of the same problem sets that exist in this space. And myself personally, buy and sell content sites. I've ranked for years for sell your website fast and things like that. So significant deal flow. Typically on the smaller side of things. And it became clear that, I would have people coming to me with a question. He'd have people coming to him with a question. And if it was a first time buyer, we never felt, and the questions were around like, hey, but 10K, 20K, 50K, where do I go to get started in this space? And you never felt good about sending somebody to Flippa. Like if they're a first time buyer, it's just a bad experience. As likely to get scammed as they are. Yeah. Like experienced buyers, not a bad spot to go. First time, scary. Never felt good about sending people there. Empire flippers, awesome. Always felt good about sending people there, but the size of the sites weren't, it was like, great, but I have 10K, not 100K. What do I do? And so, I would be selling some of my sites personally, buying some sites. And we decided that there needed to be a more efficient option for buying lower cost content sites. So content sites that are in the 5K to 75K range in terms of price. Where can they efficiently go to buy and sell those? And that's what Motion Invest has been created to address. And Spencer, Kelly, and I sort of joined forces to bring that into existence with our own portfolio. And what makes it significantly different than kind of a Flippa, which marketplace or a broker, is that we're actively buying and selling all of the sites ourselves, and that allows us to create some efficiency. So we put our own capital at risk, our own skin in the game, and allows the entire process to be much, much more efficient than what you would experience on like a Flippa or another broker. You know what? A lot of the people listening right now and my audience love you. I love you for this, because it's I get those same questions all the time, right? Like, how much should I be spending on my first site? I've got X amount of money. It's not something that is above the 50K range, and it's also quite scary for somebody who's saved up 50K or more, or even 30K, and is spending it on something, to go away and do them the injustice of sending them to Flippa is it's only gonna ruin your brand as well, hugely. And this is why I'm very, very particular with what I say in my podcast, my videos. And I do screen share reviews and stuff of Flippa and Exchange Marketplace, and some of my clients are still looking at them. And I actually did a due diligence review for one this morning off Flippa, and it's just the quality is not there compared to what is on the brokers. Like if I go to Empire Flippers and FE International, Quiet Light and all that sort of stuff, the just quality of the business is just not there on those sites. However, those experienced investors can see that and they understand the risks. So the biggest thing for the first time investors, John, is they just don't know what the risks are, let alone being able to understand them. And that's why it's super risky for them. So if everybody listening is like, do yourself a favor and first learn how to do due diligence and learn what the risks could be for those different types of business models. Would you agree on that? Totally agree. I mean, that's why that guide got created, because we didn't want to sort of like we wanted to show people completely behind the scenes of exactly how we go about doing due diligence for us to buy our own sites, and we're buying all these sites ourselves. And so we wanted to really be able to demonstrate what that detailed due diligence process looked like, so that people could then educate themselves regardless of where they purchase, or understand what each of those sites went through before we ended up buying them and listing them on our site.
Yeah, certainly. And checking out that report's really important and valuable for everybody listening, because it helps you to understand what you should be checking in the due diligence. And that's the same as is why I give people that gift as well, John, is like I have a due diligence framework. Like your report combined with my framework is like a great strategy for somebody who's trying to do it themselves, because you can at least then remove some of the risk by knowing what to be finding in the due diligence. Sure, you may not have somebody looking over your shoulder to double check things and make sure there's nothing that should be alarming, but I mean, you can that's at least a good starting point, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think the doing the deals, like anytime that there's a deal to be done, closing the gap between the information asymmetry is the information gap between the buyer and the seller is the key. And the only way to do that is to close it yourself with knowledge. And I think what you describe is a perfect process to achieving that.
Yeah, I also think once you understand a lot more about the business models and how they work, then you can understand on how to grow them as well. And knowing that information alone, combined with being able to tongue twister again, doing your due diligence, then it can equip you so much more. It can instill a lot more confidence in that person as a buyer once they know. Like for you, when you're going to go buy a site, you go, okay, cool. If I buy a content site, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And it's the same with us as well. When I go buy sites, we know which ones to go for. So that's the main thing I feel is really important, is like start with your due diligence, but as you grow and you do more due diligence, like if you look at 50 websites, or even if you look at 30 websites, you're going to learn so much about how they're actually being grown by the previous seller. Like the seller call alone is massive. Like my clients say, well, I just had my first seller call and it was like groundbreaking because they just learned so much about online business in just 60 minutes there. So you do that a couple of times and then you learn so much just through the due diligence phase.
Yeah. No, I agree. I have a different take on I think the seller, I'm a big believer in like efficiency and like single minute exchange dies and like SMEDs and like getting really geeked out on like efficiency. And the seller call I have often found to be a exercise in validating what you already have decided from the data. And sometimes there's for complicated business, that's absolutely a need, or for like inexperienced buyers, it's absolutely a great learning process. But in terms of like the efficiently buying and selling, we rarely get on the call when we're buying sites because it's the data. And if it lines up, it's all third party validatable, and that's typically sufficient. And why the seller started it and why they're selling it is sort of an emotional piece that doesn't necessarily tie into the direct valuation of the business.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just for first time buyers, why this is good is it just reduces their stress around the whole process, knowing that they're buying from a human being, not somebody.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would definitely suggest as you grow with efficiency, like I don't talk to sellers myself with clients and stuff like that. There's no chance that's going to be happening unless we're doing some massive 8-figure deal or more. But like that's something that people are going to need to work up towards. Let's talk about some of the business models that you recommend for first timers. Whilst we are talking about first timers, personally, I like the content sites and I like the FBA type business models myself. For first timers, it can be less work actually that is very necessary, whilst they can still learn things on the side. What are your thoughts on the first time business models?
So it depends, very.
It does depend on their skills and knowledge.
Yeah, and so I was just having this conversation with a former coworker, engineer, so very comfortable with numbers, very good at like understanding people and kind of like fashion, and so I thought like a Shopify paid traffic model might be an interesting approach for her to go down because comfortable with numbers, has a little bit of a budget to spend, really good at learning, and kind of like pretty into like psychology and visual design. And so I thought that might be kind of a good strategy for her to go down. I think the kind of general recommendation that I have typically is what is your skill set and how can you pick a business model that has as few variables as possible while you're learning. And so often that looks like a content site, maybe an Amazon FBA business, but I'm not, yeah, although I have some, I'm not super keen on that business model with Amazon and the single point of failure. Although you have content sites with Google, but it's, I think a little more controllable than Amazon. But so typically it looks like it's a Amazon FBA content, maybe Shopify pay traffic, but I also communicate that that's not really a business as much as it is an income stream that can be great, but not a great sort of like and enterprise value business. So content sites I typically come back to just because of their simplicity. You really only need to be good at a few things, get good at content, get okay at taking care of your site, make sure your monetization's tight, which, none of which is very hard. Hard to do consistently and hard to do really well, but you can do a pretty decent job at running a content site without too much effort.
Yeah, I love that you touched on the Shopify / dropshipping business model as not being such of an asset, but more of an income stream when you do put work in. I just want to expand that for listeners, because when you, and correct me if I'm wrong in what you're intending here is that when you buy a dropshipping site, you're going to need to be changing the marketing campaigns, and you're going to need to be redeveloping, or not redeveloping products, but making sure you can keep the best products up. And there's a bit of work in making sure you get that income stream happening, and it's very changeable with all the algorithm changes on the different marketing platforms. So it's not a hands-off sort of asset passive income approach that most people perceive it may be. Is that what you're alluding to? Yeah.
There's some very, by the numbers, very attractive businesses that are driven by Shopify dropshipping with all the traffic coming from Facebook paid ads. The exchange marketplace is filled with them. Flippa is filled with them, and there's just no enterprise value there. It's all an income stream, and the person and all the value sits with the person that runs the campaigns. And when that person isn't coming with the business because that's the seller, then there just really isn't anything that stays with that business post sale. So yeah, those I always tell people to stay away from. And if you like that business model, go build it yourself, because all of you can be successful or fail at the business model for a lot cheaper than buying an already existing one.
Yeah, for sure. I think on the opposite side of that, there is a little bit of merit in products that may sell. Especially, I stuffed up this myself, John. Personally, I started a dropshipping store, and I had no idea what I was doing, right? I'll get some products up and they'll sell. I didn't know what digital marketing was at the time. I was just a travel blogger. So you're very right in saying that, you can start this up yourself, but the biggest asset is the knowledge in marketing, digital marketing for sure.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, cool. So a lot of your sites are with Motion Invest, you're starting to get some listed. I saw some the other day, which is quite cool. And they're mostly, I think you've only got under 10K at the moment, but you're predominantly going to stick around sub 75K. Talk to us a little bit more about what advice you would be giving people who are coming to look and buy sites from you in that sub 75K range?
In terms of, we just listed 3 new ones today, and they've been selling within a few days in the week. I don't think we've had anything really much longer than that up. And in terms of advice, understand like there's always some coming along. Unfortunately, right now people need to be quick to get them. In terms of advice, I think understanding what your due diligence and what your investment thesis is, whether that's I want an exceptionally clean backlink profile with a lot of low quality content that I'm able to improve, or sort of understanding what that unique angle, which is based on your specific skill set that you want to be bringing to the table, or is very helpful coming in. And also, we're happy, Kelly's running it, but very happy to jump on the call with people to understand what their specific profile is. And because these are all of our own sites, we buy them all and sell them all. We have some ability to help do a little bit of matching. When somebody said, no, I really need a site that meets this criteria, we can try and help facilitate that happening. And so for people to work with that, like what's the recommendation to work with Motion Invest is, sign up to the newsletter. Go to motioninvest.com, sign up. You'll see all the sites as they get listed. You need to be quick, unfortunately, with how the sites are moving. And then second to that would be jump on a call with Kelly and get a real sense of what it is that you're after, so that we can help try and fit some sites that come into our portfolio into your hands if that's what you're after.
Yeah, I think for people, it's really important for people to understand that businesses under the 50K range or even 75K range, they're going to sell really quick, because a lot of people that come to the market is that's the cash that they have available, or what they could even get with finance. And I know yourself, John, and myself, we're not the biggest fans of getting finance for buying sites. That's just our personal thing. I mean, a lot of other people are really happy to do so, and that's good for them. But yeah, these sites sell quick because there's a big demand for them, and that's what you guys are doing at Motion Invest is you're filling that gap. Look, when you've got Motion Invest that comes on board and they own the businesses before they sell them, it's a bit different to what Flipper's doing, is they're just matching up sellers with buyers without much vetting or knowledge or understanding about the business. I wanted to ask, John, do you do much to these sites before you sell them? So you buy them and do you do a few little things, or do you buy them and just polish them up a little bit and get them ready for purchase? What's the process there?
It ranges. So we'll hold on. I mean, this is just a continuing on what we've been doing all along, but just at a higher scale, at a much higher velocity. So I've been, buying and selling sites for a decade, but this is just at a velocity that is 10x what we were doing before. And so, yes, we will buy and hold some, and with the aim of okay, this one's got a lot of warts on it that we need to clean up before it's ready for sale, but it was a price that we could justify based on our kind of risk tolerance for that site. And so what will we do with the site is typically look for those easy wins. So go through the process of fixing any site issues first, and then go through and identify any low-hanging monetization wins is a really easy one that we get after, and then improve any on-page SEO. So do a bit of interlinking, trim some content, consolidate content, and then work on looking at what content we can do the upgrades to and getting the content schedule moving. So that's what we do if we are planning to hold the site. It'll really range. Sometimes we'll just do kind of a quick, make sure there's no problems and list. So it really depends on how that site fits into our model. What I'd say is that right now people are saying give me more sites. And so typically we're listing them fairly quickly, with some we're holding on to. Usually the ones that are just a little too ugly right now to go on the site, need to get cleaned up, need to make sure that dip in traffic was just a dip and not a gradual decline, et cetera. So a few of those that we were happy to buy, but we got to hold for long enough. I think the big thing that we didn't want to do this unless we had the opportunity to really truly be aligned in terms of skin in the game. I don't know if you've heard of Nelson Taleb.
No.
He wrote the book Black Swan and then Skin in the Game. I think he had another one as well. But it was one of the sayings that he kind of stuck with is like, experts are always quick with free advice, but unless they have skin in the game, you always need to add sort of a correction coefficient to anybody that talks about, like, gives you advice if they don't have skin in the game. And so we try and really took that to the extreme to say, if we can't buy every site that is listed on Motion Invest, we have skin in the game. We can't be listing crappy sites because we're going to be stuck with that site. So I think that's kind of the big difference compared to FlipBuys, where anything's there, sell-through rate, I don't know, not great, lots of crappy sites, where, we try to take the opposite approach of saying, can't be a crappy site because we own it, and we'll be stuck with it if it's a crappy site.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So everybody listening, go and check out Motion Invest. Look, I'm going to put a link to the report. Combine that report. You're going to learn a lot about how to do due diligence there. Combine that report with my due diligence framework. You can get that from my site under the free resources tab. I'll put links to both of those. John, thanks so much for jumping on. I really do appreciate what you guys have built here on behalf of a lot of people looking at these sites, and a lot of my clients looking from in this range as well. Where can people find out more about you and Motion Invest?
Yeah, so Motion Invest, best place to go, and I appreciate the words, Jared, and the response has been great. Happy to be fulfilling the need that we saw. And people can go to motioninvest.com. The link to that big buying guide is there. Check out sites that are listed, sell a site if interested, and then learn sort of more about the stuff that I have across the other kind of projects. I have a site at websiteincome.com, and that's where I kind of talk about the different things that I have on go.
Awesome. Thanks again so much. And for everybody listening as well, I want to thank you for listening. Please be sure to go away, subscribe, and share this with somebody who may be looking to buy sites in this range and get a passive income, guys. If you did actually like this episode or any of my other episodes or the podcast in general, please go away and leave me a review and let me know what you liked about it, so I can bring more awesome guests like John to the show again and talk about the things that you guys actually want to hear. So please leave me a review letting me know what you actually liked about it. Thanks again, guys, for listening. Thanks again, John, and I'll speak to you on the next one.
Thanks, Jared.